As many of you probably have one of those Alexa devices in your home. Our children love to play with them and get music to play and announcements to happen on various floors of the house. Last night, an alert sounded on our Alexa. The light started circling and a bell went off. And it said, "Dense fog advisory for North Dallas." And I said, try as I might to fix Alexa so that she knows that we now live in Beechwood and not in Dallas. Even though we've been here for 18 months, I still can't get it to shift the weather alerts for the proper city. But I thought to myself for a moment, dense fog. Dense fog. That's exactly how I feel. My feeling about life right now. My feeling about the world. Like many of us, since October 7th, I've felt trapped, underwater, in a fog, with my head and heart filled with worry and anguish almost at every turn. We attempt to go about our days, meeting the needs of our family members, engaging in our daily work, gathering for Thanksgiving, doing all of these quote-unquote normal tasks and routines. But in many a free moment, and often like the continual blink of an alert in the background, is our fear, our sadness, the overwhelming sense of uncertainty. Since October 7th, we've been thrust into a space of liminality, a time for the Jewish people of ambiguity and of the dissolution of order. Overwhelmed by the unknowns of what comes next in this war, overcome by the concern over the lives of the hostages, the pictures of their faces we see when we close our eyes, overrun by the scale of misery as we attempt to imagine as so many seemingly powerless people lose their lives, and feeling threatened ourselves here by the ever-present rise of anti-Semitism and hatred, though we try each day to stand tall against it. In its many ways, it's a dense fog of heartache and woe, a sense of wilderness, of living in a space of liminality, with not yet a clearing in sight. Recently, I discovered the words of modern Israeli poet and an IDF reservist, Tali Versano Eisman. Her poem, "When I'm Drowning," evokes the feeling of this present moment. When I'm drowning, I don't need you to describe the water for me, neither its color nor its depth. After all, I can feel it up to my neck. I have just one request. Don't stop telling me, not for a moment, how it looks on dry land. Today, on December 1st, as the war resumes, the promise of our promised land feels terribly out of reach. Our Torah reminds us that we are far from the first in Israel to seek answers while feeling lost, while feeling in a liminal space or in the wilderness. This week's Torah portion, Vayishlach, features the powerful divide between Jacob and Esau. Jacob, driven by his anxiety and perhaps his guilt over winning away Esau's birthright, splits his camp in two and flees at the news of his brother's pursuit. As the scene unfolds, Jacob sends his servants with gifts for Esau, as if to display a willingness to reconcile, but also to show his privilege that he's earned, his wealth, his confidence. He sends his family and his possessions across the river for protection, and then the Torah says, Vayivater Yaakov levado. Jacob was left alone. Across the river, his future uncertain, the relationship with his twin brother assumed to be in conflict. Vayivater Yaakov levado. Jacob was alone. The Hebrew word yeter It means leftover, like the things you might sweep off the plate and into the garbage, or as happens at my table, onto the floor from my children. Yeter is also the remnants of a sacrificial offering, not needed, not desired, without purpose. But the Torah's lesson, the key, in the liminal space, the place of disorder, there is also something left over, a chance for new realities to be born. While Jacob is alone, a figure comes to him and wrestles with him until the light of dawn. Whether he wrestled with Esau, or he battled his own conscience, or as the plain read of the Torah text suggests, he wrestled with God's angel, his status changes. In Genesis 32:29, we read, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel. For you have striven with beings divine and human and have prevailed." For many of us as adults, we can think back to moments in our lives of significant change or transformation, a time we faced uncertainty and discovered a new reality or a new understanding, and we were able to move forward. Maybe it's rebuilding one's family after a divorce, or perhaps beginning a second career after a so-called midlife crisis, or perhaps a new sense of purpose in life after recovering from a significant illness, a major illness, or an addiction or a mental well-being crisis. This lesson of self-discovery is how we often talk about Vayishlach. But what about the rediscovery of our sense of peoplehood as Jews, our connection to our homeland, or our sense of Jewish identity in the face of a much more existential and larger challenge such as we face in these recent days? As painful and unthinkable as it is, can we come to see ourselves in this moment of pain at a turning point? Could our wilderness fog of feeling and being alone become an opening for opportunity? In the Midrashic commentary on the Song of Songs, we read, "Iluya min hamidbar." Going up comes from the midbar, from the wilderness. The text goes to say, spiritual ascent is from the wilderness. Organization and order is from the wilderness. Death is from the wilderness. Torah is from the wilderness. The Mishkan is from the wilderness. The courts, the priesthood, the Levites from the wilderness. Eventually royalty, our early leadership, from the wilderness. It says, "You will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation," in Exodus 19. All good gifts that the Blessed Holy One gives Israel originates in the wilderness. As this week's Torah shows us, Yisrael is from the wilderness. What could we imagine as the possibilities of this wilderness that seems so hard to conceive of in this moment? First of all, the war has highlighted how connected we truly are as a Jewish people around the world. The strengths of the Israel diaspora relationship that we feel is in question has shown itself to be true as strong. Our camp shlichim, the emissaries that come over to work in our Camp Wise each summer, we have felt as one family with them in this time. Our campers and staff members texting each other daily, nightly, as news has unfolded. Ever closer than we ever could have imagined before, even amidst our pain. The war, too, has shown us how disjointed we are as a Jewish people, that Jews are firmly arguing for Israel's goals in this war just as much as they are arguing for ceasefire. We see more clearly the areas we need to address as a community by engaging in open conversation and dialogue, by seeking understanding, even when those conversations are ever more difficult. Also highlighted in this moment is the strength of our North American Jewish community and our unparalleled Cleveland community, We are so lucky to be here in Cleveland. 1,800 of us went to the rally in D.C., and it showed, by and large, how strong we can be together when we show up. And the decades of our continued advocacy for Israel, our education around Israel issues, by and large, they have paid off by the support of those in Washington and by our president. The war has brought front and center as well the need to revisit a peace process that has been stalled for decades, that we have lost sight of, and some have recently called for a two-state solution 2.0 to look something like we could never imagine before. Those of us who remember that handshake when clergy from this congregation stood there on the White House lawn, we stand in exasperation that this is where we are today. The war, too, has reminded us that a vibrant, engaged, connected, and tuned-in Jewish life is still our best response for anti-Semitic hatred. Last Shabbat, 3 neo-Nazis showed up across the street from Temple Emmanuel in Dallas, Texas, the congregation I used to serve. The clergy responded, "Our best response isn't to post these pictures online, it's to show up on our side of the street, to be here with one another in our congregations, in our schools, in our camps, in our libraries, in our adult learning sessions, to continue developing joyful Judaism and vibrancy in Jewish life." In those moments of connection, that's when we begin to hear the voice reminding us of dry land. When I'm drowning, remind us what it looks like on dry land. We don't need more descriptions of the water. We need more descriptions of dry land, of a promised future ahead, of a possibility of a new reality for our state of Israel, for the Middle East, and for us. Where do we find that description? In our prayer, in each other, by holding each other in these moments, by learning with our wise teachers in our communities, and by opening our hearts and hearing what God's voice might provide for us. In our prayer books, I ask that we turn to page 259, the section of our prayer book, The Prayers of Our Community. Sha'alu Shalom Yerushalayim. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you prosper. Avinu Sheba Shamayim Tzur Yisrael v'goalo. Barech et Medinat Yisrael Reshit Smichat Geulatenu. O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen. May God bless this community, bless us to see light amidst the fog. Like Jacob, may we find Yisrael in this moment of pain. Amen.